The first of our salawat in honor of Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The second in honor of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. Third, with your loudest voices, in honor of Imam Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Respected scholars, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The story of the alleged massacre of the Jews of Bani Quraiza in the time of our holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, is viewed as one of the most controversial stories in the history of the religion of Islam, and indeed is viewed as a blemish on the life and the biography of the holy Prophet, with many non-Muslim writers constantly pointing towards this story and highlighting the fact that the Prophet sought to spread his religion through the sword, and that anyone who disagreed with the opinion of the Prophet or the ideology of the Prophet or the teachings of the Prophet was to be put to bed by the sword, and that the Jews of Bani Quraiza or that the Jews of Medina were all executed. In some narrations, 960 Jews were executed at one time. And therefore you find many coming forward and stating that this exemplifies that the religion of Islam in its main ethos is a religion which compels its followers to follow its way, and that if anyone goes against it, then those people will be executed, and that if anyone goes against the teachings of the Quran, the end of their life will be an end which is seen as one which is a punishment from God. And therefore you find there is a need for us to reply to such attacks on the Holy Prophet. For we find that these attacks from this one story continue until today. That you'll look within certain parts of Europe where depictions of our Holy Prophet in the form of cartoons were made, symbolizing how Muhammad was a man in Western eyes who spread his religion through the sword. For example, either depictions where he is carrying a sword in his hand, or depictions where he has a bomb in his turban, or you find depictions of him asking his followers to slaughter anyone who comes in their way. You find these depictions can be seen in places like Denmark, or have been seen in places like Sweden. When those secular countries are asked how is it that they depict the Prophet in this way, the reply that normally comes is it's a secular country, and satire should be part of the movement of any secular country. If we want to make fun of somebody, who are you to come and stop us making fun of them? Although the irony is, were you to draw a cartoon regarding the Holocaust, you'll be condemned to court straight away. Whereas to draw a cartoon about the Holy Prophet is seen as being part of satire and part of comedy. And while the Holocaust is an event which is a tragic event that occurred in humanity, in the same way there are people who have feelings related to that event, there are people who have feelings related to the Holy Prophet. Therefore, when somebody comes forward and says that the Prophet killed 960 Jews, it's vital for us to ask ourselves, have we re-evaluated the life of our Holy Prophet? Because it's of the utmost importance that one endeavors to read the biography of the Prophet, and one looks at that biography and seeks to take from that biography examples into one's life. Because the study of the biography of the Prophet is known in the Arabic language as the study of the seerah. Seerah means the biography of someone and the way that they have lived their life. You may find the biography of a prophet, a seerah of a prophet, a seerah of the companions, a seerah of the Ahlul Bayt, and that this is a science by itself, where you study their life in order that you get acquainted with what they went through. Of the utmost importance is not only studying the incidents in the life of the Prophet, but also knowing the dates when these incidents occurred. Because a book of seerah goes date by date, year by year, not in the sense of event by event and which one is the most important. No, what happened in the first year of Hijrah is discussed, the second, the third, the fourth, and so on. It is vital that we are aware of the date of incidents, not only the incidents themselves. Why? Because without knowing the dates of an incident, the jigsaw puzzle of the life of the Prophet has a major hole in it, a gaping hole. If you ask somebody now, do you know of the Battle of Badr? They'll say to you, yes. But when you come to them and you say to them, when did it occur? They'll say, we don't know. If you ask them about the Battle of Khaybar, they'll say yes. When did it occur? We don't know. If you ask them how many years was the Prophet a prophet in Mecca, many will not know. It's not something extraordinary to find out that many Muslims don't actually know when the Holy Prophet acted what he acted. As in until today there are people who do not know that Rasulullah died in the 11th year of Hijrah. If you go to many Muslims in the world today, ask them when did Rasulullah die, they'll reply, to tell the truth, we're not sure. We know it was around the 63rd year of his life, but we don't know Hijrah wise when it is. Without knowing the dates, then there is no way you can reply to such accusations. Why? Because you will then not know how the Prophet developed the religion. You will not know how he encountered different groups, when he encountered these groups, how he discussed with these groups. Therefore, there is a need for us not just to discuss the seerah of the Prophet in terms of the incidents that occurred, but also to understand the dates of each incident, for then it will provide us with a greater overview. And indeed, there is no way a person can understand the life of our Holy Prophet or can ever get closeness to God without following Rasulullah or without studying the life of Rasulullah. قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونِ. Then do what? You have to follow the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. قُلْ إِن كُنْتُمْ تُحِبُّونَ اللَّهِ. What should you do? You have to follow the path of Rasulullah. The idea is what? The idea is that the path of Rasulullah will lead you towards where? Will lead you towards the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Therefore, when we examine this area, about 960 Jews who were killed from Banu Quraiza, the examination takes a number of stages. The first of the stages is what? What is the position of the Jews in the religion of Islam? And how did this position develop? The second is what is the context of the revelation of this particular incident? What happened and why did it happen? The third is after this incident, what other Jews lived in Medina and how were they treated? And the fourth area is what is the final part of this verse and why does it say that the Christians are your closest brethren? When we examine this, we would have dissected the topic. Number one, as we know, the Jews occupy a prominent position in Islamic thought. And the idea that the Jews are seen as being part of the Abrahamic faiths. In which way? The Abrahamic faiths are those faiths which originated with Abraham. You have the religion of Islam, the religion of Christianity, and the religion of Judaism. Abraham plays a major role in Islam and Judaism. Why? Because for Islam, the line of Rasulullah is through whom? It's through Ismail, going back to Ibrahim. In Judaism, the line of the prophets goes back to Abraham through Isaac. They say that Prophet Ibrahim had his son Ishaq, who then had his son Yaqub. Yaqub's other name is Israel. And therefore his sons were called the children of Israel, Bani Israel. You find that the plight and the movements of Bani Israel are all mentioned within the Holy Quran. And many of the stories of the Holy Quran discuss what happened with the Jews and their message. For example, the story of Prophet Musa alayhi salam is arguably the greatest story within the Holy Quran in terms of the number of references it's being given. Musa and how he grew up in the time of Fir'aun, how he was brought up in the court of Fir'aun. Musa when he went from Fir'aun towards the Prophet Shu'aib in Midian. Musa when he married the daughter of Prophet Shu'aib. Musa when he came back from Midian to fight Pharaoh. Musa and the encounter with the magicians. Musa and the defeat of Pharaoh when the Red Sea was opened. Musa and the children of Israel. Musa and the commandments. All of these stories are mentioned within the Quran. You find, for example, the story of David and Goliath is mentioned within the Holy Quran, because arguably the two most important prophets of God in relation to Judaism are the Prophet Musa and the Prophet Dawood, because the Prophet Dawood is seen as being the king of the Jews, the king of the children of Israel, and his story with Goliath is mentioned in the Quran. You find at the same time the story of the Sabbath. Many Jews today will not work on the Sabbath, on the Saturday. You find that the story is mentioned clearly in the Quran, that the Jews were originally fishermen. They used to be people who used to, of course, make their trade through the buying and the selling of fish. they used to every Saturday sell in this particular area, and they used to work to bring the fish together. The narration states that the Prophet of God says to them that there has to be a day where you give towards God, a day where you give it towards God in terms of your worship. And the narration says that they said, okay, if you want to give a day, which day? And the reply was the Sabbath, or what we call in the Arabic language a Sabt, or Saturday. What they did, they would say, okay, we'd come towards the temple on the Saturday, but they'd always be thinking about the way they were making their money. And so what would happen is that near the river or near the shore, they would leave a particular device, because you know these fish would be used to the idea that on a Saturday there would be no fishermen. They've all gone to the temple. The Jews would go towards the temple, but they'd leave a device near that area where the fish would come, would get trapped, would be caught. They've left the temple and they come and find all the fish there for them. It's like us in Salat al-Jum'ah. In our ruku' we'll be thinking about a contract within an hour. It happens where you think that you're praying but your mind is somewhere else. Likewise with them on the Sabbath, they were told not to work, but what happened? They had a device which was catching all the fish. The Quran mentions the story. The Quran also mentions that the Jews used to do what? They used to worship Uzair as the son of God. Uzair, the person who asked Allah, how is it that you raise the dead and make them alive? The story is mentioned in the Quran. He went past the town which was dead. When he went past the town which was dead, he said, how does God raise the dead and make them alive? He was caused to die for 100 years. And then Allah brought him back to life again, where he was able to understand what? How Allah can resurrect you at any time. This Uzair, the Quran said, قالت اليهود عزير ibn Allah. The Jews said that Uzair is the son of God. In the same way there were Christians who said Jesus is the son of God. There was also a group of the Jews who believed in the son of God. That's another story. Another story of the Jews mentioned in the Quran is the story we referred to recently, which begins the backdrop of the discussion. Why? Because we narrated وَالسَّمَاءِ ذَاتِ الْبُرُوجِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْمَوْعُودِ وَشَاهِدٍ وَمَشْهُودٍ قُتِلَ أَصْحَابُ الْأُخْدُودِ. Ashab al-Ukhdud, we said, were the Jews of Yemen. Yemen used to have a great Jewish majority. The population of the Jews was a great one in Yemen. These Jews used to be under the ruler Yusuf ibn Nu'as al-Himyari. He used to look after them. The Jews were given a prominent position. They were allowed to have every business and trade they wanted, until the Quran mentions they massacred thousands of Christians. There was a mission of vengeance against their massacre, against their Holocaust, by Titus, the Roman emperor. Titus heard about the way the Jews were treating the Christians in Yemen, and therefore he led a Roman movement in making the Jews leave Yemen. When the Jews left Yemen, where did they go? One opinion is they went towards Iraq. Another opinion is that they went towards Syria. A third opinion is that they went towards Medina. Some ask, why did they go towards Medina? One opinion is they just went to Medina because that was a safe place. A Jewish person will not go to a place because only it's safe. They'd go because in their books it was written down that the Messiah will emerge and build his state in Medina. And therefore when they went towards Medina, at the time an oasis land, they went towards Medina in order to settle there, awaiting the Messiah. How many of their tribes went to settle there? 12 of their tribes went to settle there. 12 Jewish tribes went to settle in Medina. 3 of them were the most famous tribes, and their names have to be learnt. The first of them was Banu Qaynuqa'. That was the first Jewish tribe. Banu Qaynuqa'. The second of them was Banu Nadir. The third of them was Banu Quraiza, the people who are our discussion tonight. These Jewish tribes settled down in Medina. These 3 were the most prominent. What was their trade? Their main trade was that they were able to make ornaments, they were able to make weapons for war, and they were also loan sharks. They'd give you loans, and if you don't pay them back, they charge you interest on those loans. So whenever you seek to know where these acts originated, there's only one group of people. In Medina, they were the loan sharks. Anybody who wanted a loan, you're more than welcome, but if you don't pay me back, every day you don't pay me back, there's a price on what you owe me. and that this price would increase and increase. Before you know it, when it was the time of God, God had his time. When it was the time of making money, money had its time. That was their philosophy, and they established themselves at the helm in Medina. They established until the Aws and the Khazraj came together. The Aws and the Khazraj, originally Yemeni tribes, came together in Medina and now headed Medina. But the Jews were very influential. Why? Because the Jews were able to do what? They were able to convert many of the children of the Aws and the Khazraj towards Judaism. Many of the children came towards Judaism through the rabbis who were teaching them about their holy book. What happened was many of the people of Medina started to hear about the message of the Holy Prophet. When they heard about the message of the Holy Prophet, they heard that this Prophet of God has a revealed book which teaches the best of principles, and that he was being persecuted in Mecca. They went with a delegation one year telling the Holy Prophet, come towards Medina. There is a group of us who are ready to look after you. There is a group of us who are ready to defend you. The second year they went with another delegation. When they went, this time the Prophet said, we will be coming, and he had sent them an ambassador. Who did he send? He sent Mus'ab ibn Umair. Mus'ab ibn Umair went towards Medina. He managed to bring the Aws and the Khazraj tribes together. Then Rasulullah went in the Hijrah in the 13th year of his prophethood. At the age of 53, he went towards Medina. When he went towards Medina, the Jews became unhappy now that their authority was diminishing. Why? Because as soon as Rasulullah entered Medina, the state of Medina, the Aws and the Khazraj had now all united under Rasulullah. The Jews witnessed that this religion of ours is diminishing with the presence of this man, and therefore they were unhappy with his movements. As an example, the verse in the Quran, La ikraha fi din. Why was this verse revealed? La ikraha fi din was revealed when many of the Aws and the Khazraj would come to Rasulullah. They would say, Ya Rasulullah, we have become Muslims, but our children are still Jewish. Can we force our children to become Muslim? Rasulullah replied with this verse, La ikraha fi din. You can't compel your children to become Muslim. If your children want to stay Jewish, they stay Jewish. If they want to come to Islam, they can come to Islam. But you cannot compel them. The Jews were listening to this, but with no effect. And now Muhammad is making the parents of these children come towards the religion of Islam, number one. Number two, the thing that infuriated them was that they thought this Messiah, Muhammad, would come towards Medina in all glory, in gold, in the most beautiful of transport. Yet they see this man who comes looking like a shepherd on a camel. To them, a Messiah has to be someone who is glorious, someone who looks like he's going to be a king. Yet they saw Rasulullah enter Medina in the most humble of ways. They started asking, how can you be a man of God? God should send angels with you when you came. He said, a man of God doesn't have to have angels with him. There are some men of God who became kings, like Dawood and Sulaiman. There are other men of God who were mere carpenters, or were mere sincere servants of the community. That made them unhappy, that they thought it was a Messiah who's going to be a great one. Instead it turned out to be someone who's so simple. Number three, the economic policies of Rasulullah made them unhappy. Why? Rasulullah banned interest. Interest was not allowed to be involved in the transactions, in the interactions. The Jews were thinking half of our money is made from interest. Muhammad has now stopped economic ways of us flourishing, and therefore you found that they built an animosity towards Rasulullah. When they built this animosity towards Rasulullah, Rasulullah replied back to them with no animosity, rather with respect. Why? Because when Rasulullah entered Medina, he knew there were Jews and he knew there were Christians, and therefore he wrote the constitution of Medina. When he wrote, and I ask all of you to go and research this constitution, Google it, the constitution of Medina. When he wrote this constitution, he said, there are Jews living in Medina, there are Christians living in Medina, there are Muslims living in Medina. The Jews can continue to have their synagogues, the Christians can continue to have their churches, the Muslims will have their mosques, The Jews have their own legal system. The Christians have their own legal system. The Muslims have their own legal system. If a Muslim attacks a Jew, he'll be punished. If a Jew attacks a Muslim, he'll be punished. If a Christian attacks a Jew and a Jew attacks a Christian, there'll be a punishment. If a Muslim and a Jew both attack each other, then the judge is Rasulullah. And this way, he wanted to build an environment where he was saying to the Jews from the outset that, look, you don't believe I'm a Messiah because I look simple. I don't look like the richest man in the world, nor is there a cavalry of angels behind me. I understand. But at least live here on the fact that there are more common denominators between our religions than there are differences. In the same way you respect Moses, I respect Moses. You respect David, I respect David. You respect Noah, I respect Noah. Let's live together in this way. Yet there are some people, however well you treat them in this world, they just don't pay any attention. However nicely you treat them, by building an institution or a government where the world is welcome to practice their religion, they go against you. Why? Because one of the points in the constitution, if an outside force attacks Medina, everybody helps each other. The Muslims will help the Jews, and the Jews will help the Muslims. And that nobody in Medina becomes an ally of the outside forces. As in naturally now, in the world of politics today, there are allies, people who make agreements with each other, conventions with each other, that us two will be united with each other. If an outside force attacks us, we'll be united. But the worst act in any political treaty in the world today is treason. Do you agree? Treason, to go behind the back of the agreement and join those forces which are attacking your country. I think in the British legal system, until today, treason is the only act which you can be executed for. All other acts, a person may face prison. But treason, there is an execution for one who commits treason. Likewise, Rasulullah said, us and the Christians and the Jews who live in Medina should protect each other from any outside forces. These three Jewish tribes, what did they do? The first of them, which was which tribe? Banu Qaynuqa'. Banu Qaynuqa' were the first to break this constitution. How? You know you were allowed to practice your religion. All three of them were allowed to practice their religion, the three religions. Banu Qaynuqa' would come to the ladies who would wear hijab in Medina. When they'd come near them, they'd look around. If there's any Muslim looking, no one's looking. They'd say to the lady, take off your hijab. She'd say, what do you mean take off the hijab? Say, take off your hijab, come on. So I'm not going to take off my hijab. I follow the religion of Islam. They'd pull the hijab off her hair. And they'd continue walking. All of a sudden, a number of the Jewish people of Medina would do this to the woman. They would come and they'd pull their scarves off. Rasulullah said, we've got an agreement over here in the constitution that we are meant to respect each other's religion. What's all this? They said, if we want to live our life like this, we'll live our life like this. Who are you to tell us what we should do? Here, Rasulullah expelled Banu Qaynuqa' from Medina. Why? Because people like this tribe going ground, attacking another person's place of worship or attacking another person's rights of worship should not be living in Medina. Why? Because they build an unhealthy community. As in, if I now saw a Jewish person in the street in London, you'll find some Muslims until today in the 21st century, if they see a Jewish person in the street, they'll come and make fun of him or attack him. Why? What's he done wrong to you? If you have a problem with somebody in another country, the way they are oppressing others, that's country's political issue. A Jewish person living in this country has done nothing wrong to you. Why then go and attack? Likewise, Rasulullah said to the Jews of Banu Qaynuqa', he said to them, these Muslim women, what have they done wrong to you? If I have got something which I have done wrong to you, come up to me, say to me, Muhammed, we have a difference of opinion. But for you to go to a Muslim woman and rip their hijab off, that's not acceptable. Out. He expelled them. Did he kill them? No. He expelled them. The second tribe, Banu Nadir, what did they do? Abu Sufyan had been trying for years to kill Rasulullah. How many years? Abu Sufyan, 13 years Rasulullah was in Mecca. From the age of 40 until 53, he was trying to kill Rasulullah. Every attempt he tried to kill Rasulullah failed. When Rasulullah went to Medina, it was Abu Sufyan who caused the rumor that Rasulullah had attacked the caravan of the Arabs. Because you know the Battle of Uhud began because of this rumor. Abu Sufyan sent a messenger, the caravan of the Arabians has been attacked by Muhammed. When Abu Jahl heard, Abu Jahl led the army outside to go in the battle of Uhud. The same Abu Sufyan wasn't at Uhud. He left, wasn't at Badr. He left the battlefield before they came. He went home. But when Hind saw that her father and that her brothers had been killed by Amir al-Mu'mineen and Hamza and Rasulullah, Hind said, now you have to go and gain revenge. He wanted to go and gain revenge, but he needed the help of an insider in Medina. Who was the insiders? Banu Nadir, Jewish tribe. In the constitution it said, if an attacking force comes to you, do you let them attack you or do you all unite? You unite. Banu Nadir, do you know what they did? They said to Abu Sufyan, we'll get you in and we'll tell you what Muhammad's soldiers are doing. 1 minute we'll talk to Muhammad, the next minute we'll talk to your soldiers. Sufyan, we'll get you in and we'll tell you what Muhammad's soldiers are doing. 1 minute we'll talk to Muhammad, the next minute we'll talk to your soldiers. Is that treason or no? It's the biggest sign of treason. When you're telling an outside force, Muhammad positioned some of his soldiers here, and there's this soldier, he's over there, and there is this person who is saying this, and he's going to come and sit here, walk there, move here. What happened was they sheltered 200 of the soldiers of Abu Sufyan. How many? 200 soldiers of Abu Sufyan were sheltered by whom? Were sheltered by Banu Nadir. The same Banu Nadir tried to kill Rasulullah on behalf of Abu Sufyan. How? Rasulullah was sitting with his companions. They were discussing what they were meant to do in the war. One of Banu Nadir went from the top of a mountain. He had a rock. He picked up this rock, he threw it. It was coming down to Rasulullah. The hadith tells us Jibreel told Rasulullah, move in a moment because you are in a state of danger. When he moved, he asked, why was I in a state of danger? He said, Banu Nadir were trying to kill you with a rock. And they're protecting 200 of the soldiers of Abu Sufyan. The battle of Uhud, they are part of the battle of Uhud on the side of Abu Sufyan. Rasulullah came to Banu Nadir. He asked them, is this the situation? They said, yes, treason. What did he do to them? He's again expelled them. He said, you have to be expelled. Why? Because of the fact that you have acted behind our back. You have told Abu Sufyan what we are doing. We signed a constitution that each and every one of us will protect each other. You have broken the constitution. Out you go of the Islamic State. Listen to who's making the decisions. This is a fine analysis. We need to understand, not only understand, we need to write a journal paper on this issue. Because it's Rasulullah who's making the decisions, isn't he? He's the one who's saying, in the act of treason, expulsion. Not killing. In the act of treason, expulsion. Banu Nadir were expelled. The last Jewish tribe which acted was the one we're talking about, Banu Quraiza. Banu Quraiza, they noticed, Badr, Rasulullah won. Uhud, Rasulullah won. What was the next war after those two? After Badr and Uhud? Khandaq. Khandaq, Abu Sufyan mobilized an army of 10,000 soldiers. He had a soldier with him by the name of Ammar ibn Wadd al-Amiri. Ammar ibn Wadd, they say his hobby was to wrestle lions. You know, he'd go looking for lions. If the lion runs away, he says, why are you running away? Why don't we fight each other today? I don't think there's many people who wrestle lions as a hobby. This person was known as quite a ferocious warrior. This Ammar ibn Wadd with Abu Sufyan, when they came towards Medina, they had a problem. What was the problem? Abu Sufyan said, I can enter Medina from 3 areas, but the northern side of Medina, I have a trouble entering it. Why? He said, because of 2 reasons. Number 1, Salman al-Muhammadi has made a Khandaq. But number 2, the last Jewish tribe remaining, Banu Quraiza, are not helping me. I'm trying to get through to them to help me. Because if they allow me to enter with my soldiers, I have mobilized a greater army than what I had at Badr and Uhud. At Uhud, Abu Sufyan had 3,000 soldiers. At Badr, Abu Sufyan had approximately 1,000 soldiers. At Khandaq, Abu Sufyan took 10,000 soldiers. But still he needed the help of Banu Quraiza. Banu Quraiza, one of the members of Banu Nadir was still alive, the head of their tribe, by the name of Huway ibn Akhtab. Some ahadith say his name was Hay ibn Akhtab. He came to the head of Banu Quraiza. He said to him, listen to me. Us and Banu Qaynuqa have failed. you people have still got a chance. Help Abu Sufyan, we'll finish Muhammad's message. Just help him, sort it out, and we'll finish. But he said to him, but I've made an agreement with Muhammad. I've made an agreement that we will support him. He said, listen, we want our religion to be at the fore here. The only way our religion will be at the fore, Muhammad is killed. Abu Sufyan has a soldier with him called Ammar ibn Wadd al-Amiri. There is not a soldier in the army of Muhammad who can match him. He seemed to have forgotten the soldier who killed his in-laws at Badr and Uhud. Anyway, so what happened was, when he said this, the head of Banu Quraiza said, okay, I'll do it. I'll get you guys to come in from the northern side and then come in and finish Muhammad's army. Don't tell me that it was difficult, because if you lose this war, then I'm going to be in a spot of bother. I'm going to be removed from this place because I've agreed with Muhammad and now I'm committing treason. He said, don't worry, we'll finish this off. Little did they know that Ali ibn Abi Talib stood their way at Khandaq. That when he came, Abu Sufyan and his army came through the Khandaq, Amr ibn Wadd came forward and he said, O army of Muhammad, bring your warrior to challenge me. Which one of you can challenge me? And he said something quite beautiful to the credit of the enemy. He said, why are you scared to challenge me? Because you know, Amir al-Mu'mineen got up, said, I want to go. Rasulullah said, sit down. Second time, sit down. Third time, sit down. Amr ibn Wadd, he started thinking, it looks like none of them are ready to challenge me. And then he said, why are you scared to challenge me? If you kill me, you go to this heaven Muhammad promises you. And if you don't kill me, then at the end of the day you still go to that heaven, because you'll die as a martyr. So why are you scared? The young man walked out by the name of Amir al-Mu'mineen. When Amir al-Mu'mineen walked out on the day of Khandaq, Khandaq was in the 6th year after Hijrah, which means Ali ibn Abi Talib was 28 years old on the day of Khandaq. Some of our 28-year-olds, wallah, it leaves a lot to be desired. But Ali ibn Abi Talib sets an example for you at the age of 28 of a warrior. When he comes out, when he came out, what did he say? Amr ibn Wadd said, who's this young man who's come out to fight me? I'm the one who wrestles the lions. What's your name? He said, my name is Ali, the son of Abu Talib. He said to him, I won't kill you. He said to him, why? He said, because your father was a good friend of mine. I won't kill you. He said, but I'll kill you because you're an enemy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So Ali ibn Abi Talib doesn't joke when he comes on the battlefield. He wants to finish the situation off quickly. When they came in the encounter one-on-one with each other, when they came in this encounter, there is that famous moment when Amir al-Mu'mineen walks away. Then he comes back in, because you know, all they see is dust. Imagine you're on both sides. Can you see them fighting each other? You just see dust. You're not sure what's going on in the middle until Ali ibn Abi Talib comes back with the head saying, Allahu Akbar. When he came out, when he came back, they said to him, there was a moment you walked away. And then you came back in, then you walked away. What's happened? He said, Amr ibn Wadd was on the ground. I was about to strike him. As I was about to strike him, he spat at me. I walked away because I'll never strike a person who angers me. I'll only strike someone who angers Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he walked away. He said, then I finished him. The narration continues to say what? Rasulullah on that day said, the strike of Ali in Khandaq is greater than the worship of all the creation until the day of judgment. Rasulullah said the whole of Iman fights the whole of Kufr. Amir al-Mu'mineen brought a victory, but now there was a problem. Banu Quraiza clearly had given Abu Sufyan the chance to fight at Khandaq. Rasulullah called the heads of Banu Quraiza. He said to them, you went behind our back. We have a constitution agreement that the Jewish people and the Muslims will live in peace. You go behind our back and you support Abu Sufyan? They said, yes, we did. He said, therefore I'm going to have to make the decision as to what should happen to you. They thought, because of the fact that they had committed this treason, they thought that Rasulullah is going to do what? They thought Rasulullah is definitely going to finish them, because of the fact that a major war had insinuated. He said, I'm going to make the decision. They said, no. Why? They said, we don't want you to make the decision. We want Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh to make the decision. Why? Because Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh originally was from the tribe of whom? He was from the tribe of Aus. You know the Aus and the Khazraj? He was from the tribe of Aus. Originally the tribe of Aus were allies of Banu Quraiza. Banu Quraiza Banu Aus, they were allies of each other. They thought Sa'ad, because he used to be an ally before, is gonna be more lenient than Rasulullah. Do you understand? Because Sa'ad was the head of a tribe, he had the ability to make decisions in government. They said, Muhammad, you're not gonna make our decision. Because they thought, you know what, Muhammad's gonna expel. So what happened? They said Sa'ad. Sa'ad had just been wounded in the battle. So was he in the best of moods or no? I don't think so. And so Sa'ad looked at them and he said what? Sa'ad looked at them and he said, you want me to make the decision? Yes. He said, the heads of your tribe will all be executed. The women will not be. They are to be set free. Or they are to be taken as servants or slaves. The children are to be set free. And those of your tribe who had nothing to do with the negotiations with Abu Sufyan are to be set free as well. Notice how he doesn't execute everybody. No. He says those of you who went and discussed with Abu Sufyan behind our back, those of you are the ones who are going to have to be executed. Therefore this number 960, yes, Banu Quraiza were 960 Jews, but not all of them were killed. No. Only a few of them who were the main protagonists, they were the ones who were killed. The rest of them were set free or were taken and ransomed as slaves. The question then arises is, then why do we have in Islamic books the narrations that Banu Quraiza were all massacred? Because if you go to the seerah of Ibn Ishaq, he has 5 pages dedicated to the idea that 960 Jews were massacred. Understand this fine point. How do we reply to this idea? Number one, Ibn Ishaq was seen by the greatest scholars of Islam as being an imposter when he discussed Jewish history. Malik ibn Anas used to say, number one, Ibn Ishaq is not reliable because he's a historian, not a traditionist. Which means what? Which means he does not scrutinize his narrations with the chain of narration properly. Because you know every narration has a chain. Says Ibn Ishaq doesn't have a chain to his narrations. And even in his chain of the narration for the incident of Banu Quraiza, he says in the chain of the narrators, he has the descendants of Banu Quraiza. If I'm one of the descendants, aren't I going to make the scene look more glorious? He says there are 2 descendants of Banu Quraiza in his chain. Therefore Malik wouldn't take from him. Ibn Hajar used to say you cannot take from Ibn Ishaq any narration on the Jews. Why? He said because Ibn Ishaq would glorify Jewish history to gain more knowledge from the people of Medina who were Jewish. You see, he wanted to gain more knowledge from the people of Medina who were Jewish, so he would glorify their history. Number 2. Number 3, very importantly, Tabari doesn't mention this narration. Ibn Kathir does not mention this narration. Waqidi does not mention this narration. And that goes to show you that the narration in itself of 960 being executed is a weak one. Number 4, وَلَا تَزِرُ وَازِرَةً وِزْرَ أُخْرَى. You can't put a burden on someone's soul who didn't commit the crime. If 960 Jewish people exist, but only 3 of them did this with Abu Sufyan, the others had nothing to do with it, should we massacre all of them? The Quran says no. You can't burden the soul of one person with the actions of another. It's contradictory that Rasulullah would allow such a thing when the Quran goes against such a thing. Number 4, we find that the later Islamic scholars do not use this particular incident as a precedent for their laws. Please understand this. There is a book called Kitab al-Amwal. Kitab al-Amwal is a book of fiqh. Within this book, there is a discussion about the opinions of Imam al-Awza'i. Imam al-Awza'i is one of the most famous jurisprudents in Islamic history. Within this book, there is a narration that in Lebanon, when Abdullah ibn Ali used to be the governor of Lebanon, there was a group of people who went against his decisions. When they went against his decisions, he decided to condemn all this group of people and to expel all of them. Imam al-Awza'i differed with the opinion. What did he say? He said, according to Islamic history, if a group of people have gone against you, or have committed treason, you don't expel all of them. You only expel the heads of the group. The rest of them you do not expel. On the basis of what? On the basis of the action of Rasulullah with Banu Quraiza. That Rasulullah and Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh said only the heads have committed treason. The rest of them have done nothing wrong. Therefore it's unacceptable for us to expel the whole group of people. Number 5, and very importantly, in Jewish history, there is a story exactly the same as that of Banu Quraiza. And that's why I'm of the opinion, and other historians are of the opinion, that they took that story and put it into the Islamic narrations. Which story? They say that Alexander, before Herod the Great, used to rule Jerusalem. And that Alexander, there was an incident when he was willing to massacre 960 Jews. Notice how the number 960 repeats itself. That's why the ulama of hadith say there are what are known as Isra'iliyat. Isra'iliyat. Isra'iliyat means the narrations from the children of Israel which found themselves in Muslim narrations. There was an incident of 960 Jews who were originally massacred. Suddenly that incident found itself in Muslim narrations. Exactly the same incident, and that's why in 1973 in the World Congress of Jewish Studies there was a study of how the incident of Banu Quraiza relates exactly to the incident of Alexander with the Jews. And that there was a Jewish scholar who came forward and said that there was no such thing as 960 people dying. All it was, they took that story and they started putting it into the life of Rasulullah. That's why the next question is, how were the Jews of Medina treated after this incident? The remaining tribes of Medina after this incident were 2 tribes. The tribes of Khaybar and the tribes of Fadak. Please understand this important legal point. The tribe of Khaybar, the Jewish tribe, what did they do to Rasulullah? They fought him on the day of Khaybar. They saw Rasulullah with his good treatment, but still, they said, this is our last chance to finish Muhammad's religion. They had a ruler by the name of Marhab. This Marhab said, I'll take on anybody in Muhammad's army. Rasulullah, to his credit, what did he do? He sent soldiers to go and fight them. The first soldier who he sent to fight, he sent the first Khalifa with a banner to fight. The first Khalifa came back and said, I cannot bring victory. He sent the second Khalifa. He said, I cannot bring victory. He couldn't send Ali ibn Abi Talib because Ali ibn Abi Talib was where? Because Ali ibn Abi Talib, his eye, there was an illness inside it. Therefore, because he was ill with a fever in his eye, he wasn't able to fight. Rasulullah said, bring Ali ibn Abi Talib to me. He took from his saliva and he placed it in the eye of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Ali ibn Abi Talib said, after that day I had never seen as perfectly as I had seen after my eye was cured. And you don't want to see Ali ibn Abi Talib when his eyes can see everything in front of him. Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas says that on the day of Khaybar, the night before, Rasulullah said, tomorrow I'll give a banner to the man who loves me and Allah and me love him. On that same night, Marhab in his dream saw that a lion was defeating him. When Marhab came out the next day, he came out and he said, I'll kill any of the soldiers who come and oppose me. What is the name of that soldier running towards me? Sa'ad bin Abi Waqqas said, we were all standing there. He said, before even Rasulullah had said anything, he said Ali ibn Abi Talib was already going through the army by himself. And when he came near Marhab, he said, I am the one whose mother named him Haydar, the lion. Which means, you know the dream you saw last night about a lion? I'm the lion who's been waiting for you. And he managed to finish him, and he managed to finish the Jew. And he managed to finish him, and he managed to finish the Jews of Khaybar. The spoils which emerged from the Jews of Khaybar were to be given out as khums. Because according to the Islamic economic system, when there is a war, the spoils that emerge are to be given as khums. The khums was spread out between the companions. The only Jewish tribe that remained after that was whom? The Jews of Fadak. The Jews of Fadak saw Ali ibn Abi Talib at Khaybar and they said, I don't think we'll fight the man. And so what they did, they said, we'll give you our land without fighting you. In Islamic economics, land which is given to you without war comes under the title of fay. Land which comes to you from war comes under the title of khums. Khums is to be shared out according to what the Quran says, to Allah and His Prophet and the close ones and so on. Fay can be shared out by Rasulullah as he wants to share it out. Khums, he is to abide by the Quran. Fay, he could give it to who he wants. Khaybar, he is allowed to give the spoils to through khums. Fay of fadak, fadak he can give it to who he wants. That's why fadak was given to Fatima, because he could give it as fay. He doesn't have to give it to the rest of the Muslims. So when the first Khalifa said, prophets don't leave behind inheritance, the issue isn't about an inheritance which goes to the rest of Muslims. Why? Because fadak wasn't won through war, so it doesn't come under khums, it comes under fay. If it comes under fay, it's at the jurisdiction of Rasulullah who he gives it to. Rasulullah gave it to Fatima al Zahraa. The first Khalifa's argument is flawed. And that's why fadak remained with Fatima until after Rasulullah died, when they said that we should take it, until it was passed around to everyone. Even Harun Rashid had fadak. He said, I'll give it to Musa al-Kadhim. Musa al-Kadhim said, you'll never be able to give us fadak back. He said to him, why? He said, because fadak is every boundary of this earth. The whole earth belongs to Fatima al Zahraa. You'll never be able to give us, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. You'll never be able to give it back to us. The point was what? The point was that the Jews of fadak remained. The Jews of whom? The Jews of Khaybar as well. They had their own places now, but that Rasulullah, the entire Islamic state, was in his hands. The question arises, after Rasulullah died, the Jews, were they allowed to live in Medina? Yes, they were. Were they allowed to visit Medina? Of course they were. The Jews used to come for what reason? They used to come to ask, where is the successor of Rasulullah? Because in our books it's written, the successor of Muhammad can answer any question you'd pose to him. When they came, the first Khalifa would admit that he'd say, I cannot answer the questions, go towards Ali ibn Abi Talib. The Jewish rabbis would come towards Amir al-Mu'mineen. When they'd come towards Amir al-Mu'mineen, they'd ask him, are you the successor of Muhammad? If you are, we have questions. If you can answer them, we'll accept you. He said, go ahead. There is a narration where they say to him, what is 1? What is 2? What is 3? What is 4? What is 5? What is 6? What is 7? All the way until what is 100? And he replies by saying, 1 is God, 2 is Adam and Eve, 3 are the minerals, 4 are the heavenly books, 5 are the daily prayers, 6 are the number of days the heavens and earth were created, 7 are the heavens above us, 8 are the angels that carry the throne, 9 are the signs of Moses, 10 are the extra days Moses spent at Sinai, 11 are the brothers of Yusuf, 12 are the springs that gush forth, 20, if you have 20, they'll defeat 200, 30 are the number of days Moses originally spent at Sinai, 50, he said 50, one day is 50,000 years in the eyes of God, 60, number of slaves you have to free, 70, the number of people who wanted to see God in the time of Moses, 80 is the punishment you give someone for false accusation of adultery, 99 are the sheep in the story of Dawood when he has to correct the 2 brothers, 100 are the number of whips which a person receives because of adultery. When the Jewish person would hear this, he'd call out, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Anyone of any religion who comes to ask from the religion of Islam is more than welcome to be answered from the books of the religion of Islam. The Jews would come towards Al-Muhammad and ask them question. Yet the verse which I quoted at the beginning of the lecture, لَتَجِدَنَّ أَشَدَّهُمْ عَدَاوَةً لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا الْيَهُودُ وَالَّذِينَ أَشْرَكُوا. The worst of the people towards Rasulullah in that time were the Jews. But who were the closest? وَلَتَجِدَنَّ أَقْرَبَهُمْ مَوَدَّةً لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا الَّذِينَ قَالُوا إِنَّا نَصَارَى ذلك بأن منهم قسيسين ورهبانا وأنهم لا يستكبرون. The closest people to Rasulullah were those who said, we are the Christians, because they had priests and they had monks who were humble human beings. وإذا سمعوا ما أنزل إلى الرسول ترى أعينهم تفيض من الدمع مما عرفوا من الحق. when they hear what has come to our Prophet, their eyes begin to overflow with tears. And they go on to say, يَقُولُونَ رَبَّنَا آمَنَّا فَاكْتُبْنَا مَعَ الشَّاهِدِينَ. Oh Allah, we believe, so make us amongst those who are martyrs, amongst those who are the witnesses. Many Christians came towards Al-Muhammad just by listening to the words of Al-Muhammad. And that's why when you go towards the 10th of Muharram and what followed the 10th of Muharram, many Christians came to Abu Abdullah because of the universal message of Abu Abdullah, the principles of Abu Abdullah. And that's why we find that the first of the Christians who joined Abu Abdullah on the 10th of Muharram was Wahab al-Kalbi. Wahab al-Kalbi, a few weeks before Karbala, was a Christian. And a few weeks before Karbala, he was a person who had been married. He was really in his honeymoon stage. But there was a narration which says Wahab al-Kalbi, his mother had a close affinity with Ali ibn Abi Talib. Why? Because the narration is Wahab saw Abu Abdullah walking past him. He said to him, where are you going? He said, I'm going towards Karbala. He said to him, why? He said, because we people have been treated unjustly and it is time that we rise against this injustice. Wahab said to him, what's your name? He said, I am Hussein, the son of Ali, the son of Abu Talib. When he heard this, he went back. His mother said to him, who were you talking to? He replied by saying, I was talking to a man by the name of Hussein, the son of Ali. She said to him, what did he say to you? He replied by saying, mother, he is standing against injustice and oppression, but he's brought his family with him. Amongst that family is a 4-year-old by the name of Ruqayya, and he has a daughter by the name of Sukaina. Children surround him, his wives surround him, but mother, there are only 72 of them on this journey. The mother said to him, did you manage to get his father's name? He replied by saying, yes, his father was called Ali ibn Abi Talib. The mother began to cry. He said to her, why do you cry? She said, you know, me and your father are Christians. He said, yes, of course. She said, but his father was a pious man. And I was pregnant with you. And when I was pregnant with you, I had fallen ill in my pregnancy. Your father said that he has been praying to God that I would get better. But your father said that Ali ibn Abi Talib may be a Muslim, but he is a man of piety. Your father went to Ali ibn Abi Talib and said to him, oh Ali, would you pray to your God that he cures my wife? She is ill with her son. She said, Wahab, were it not for the prayers of Ali ibn Abi Talib, I would never have been alive after giving birth to you. She said to him, my son Wahab, go and fight alongside Hussein, son of Ali. He went and he went valiantly on the 10th of Muharram, yet he had just got married. After having got married, his wife at first said to him, please don't go and fight, please remain behind with me. He said to her, but it's the grandson of Rasulullah, I have now become a Muslim through him, I have to defend him. She would say to him, please do not fight, please do not fight, until when he emerged on the battlefield on the 10th of Muharram, the narrations say to us, fight until when he emerged on the battlefield on the 10th of Muharram. The narrations say to us that while he was fighting, as he was about to fight, she called out to him, don't fight again. But then he was walking, he said to her, I have to fight. Then all of a sudden he heard his wife say, go out and fight quickly. He turned around and he said to her, why should I go out and fight quickly? Why have you changed your mind? She said, the cries of the children of Abu Abdullah are killing me. I cannot take to be in this environment while Hussein and his children are like this way. He went on to fight and he would turn around to his mother. He'd say to her, mother, are you proud of me for what I've done? She said, I will not be proud until I can show your head to Fatimato Baz'atum Minni on the day of judgment. Narrations say that his wife came to Abu Abdullah. When she came to Abu Abdullah, she came to him, she said, Ya Abu Abdullah, do you promise me that I will be with my husband in paradise? Abu Abdullah said, I promise you. She said, then let him continue fighting. The narration says that when her husband was on the ground, someone came and struck her husband while on the ground. She ran out towards her husband to defend him. As she was sitting near him, Shimr bin al-Jawshan said to his servant, go and strike that young lady who sits near her husband. The man came and he struck her on her head. She was the first female to die on the 10th of Muharram. next to her husband. Umar ibn Sa'ad took the head of the son. He threw Wahab said to his mother. The mother looked at the head. She threw it back to Umar ibn Sa'ad. She said, I wish I had 20 sons to give towards Abu Abdullah. Imagine how this lady, imagine the mentality of this lady. That was the first Christian. There are another two I have to come to. The second Christian was the one who came to behead Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. Imam al-Hussein was lying on the ground. Narrations say he lay on the ground for a while in the heat of Karbala. Nobody killed him. He was still lying on the ground. There was a Christian soldier who was in the army of Ibn Ziyad. This Christian soldier came towards him. Abu Abdullah was surrounded by arrows. The Christian soldier came near him. As he was about to strike Abu Abdullah for a moment opened his eyes and he said to him, Ayyuhan Nasara, O Christian man, have you read in your Bible about a man by the name of Ahmed? The Christian looked at Abu Abdullah as if his hands began to shake. He looked at him and he said, yes, I have. He said, have you read about a man in the Bible by the name of Ali? He said to him, yes, I have. He said, do you know about a lady in your Bible by the name of Fatima? He said to him, yes, I do. He was saying to him, tell me, why are you saying this to me? He said, my grandfather is that man Ahmed, and my father is the man Ali ibn Abi Talib, and my mother is the lady Fatimato Baz'atum Minni. He pulled away his dagger. He ran away. They said to him, where are you running? He said, how can you kill the grandson of a man whose name is within the Bible? That was the second man. But the third man was a man who Abu Abdullah didn't meet in Karbala. No, was a man who at a young age Abu Abdullah met him. This man was a priest of the Christian world. This young man had come towards Rasulullah one day. Abu Abdullah was a young man at the time. This Christian came towards Rasulullah. He said to him, oh Muhammad, I do not believe you are a prophet of God, but one thing I do know is you are a pious man. Me and my wife cannot have children. Would you pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? This goes to the story of Halab. Those of you who have been to Halab, would you pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Would you pray to God that me and my wife have children? Imam al-Hussein was next to Rasulullah, his grandfather. He was a young man at the time. Rasulullah looked at Imam al-Hussein and he looked at the Christian. He said to him, oh Christian, ask that young man to pray to his Lord for you, because his Lord would never reject any prayer which he prays. The Christian came. He said to him, would you pray to your Lord? I want children. My wife wants children. The narration says Imam al-Hussein began to say, Ya Allah, provide this man with children. This man saw Imam al-Hussein years later in the time of the Khilafah of Imam al-Hasan. He came to Imam al-Hussein. He said, oh Imam, do you remember you prayed to Allah that for me to have children with my wife? He said to him, yes, of course, oh Christian man. Where do you live now? He said, I live in an area called Halab in Syria. I am now a monk there. He said to him, yes, how many children do you have? He said, I have 7 children now because of the blessings of God and because of your prayers. But then he said to Abu Abdullah, he said, Ya Abu Abdullah, is there a day when you will visit me so that you will see my children? Abu Abdullah looked at him and he said, I promise you there will be a day when I visit you. I promise you that I'll come past Halab and I'll visit you. Little did the Christian man know that Abu Abdullah's head would visit him in his monastery. Because when Ibn Ziyad's army left Kufa to go towards Halab, they came towards this monastery. When they came near the monastery, this monk came out. He saw them. He said, how can I help you? They said to him that we want to stay here in this area for the night. He said to them, I do not mind. You can stay on the outskirts of my monastery. As he was turning around, he saw heads on spears, one head next to the other. But there was one head in particular which he looked at. He said to Ibn Ziyad, he said to him, you see that head over there? Who does it belong to? Ibn Ziyad didn't want to say who it belonged to. He said, it's the leader of the rebels. The man then said to him, please tell me whose head it belongs to, because I see light shining from that face. Ibn Ziyad said to him, leave the head. He said, no, I want to have it just for one night. I'll pay you for one night. He took the head, but he couldn't recognize whose face it was. Why? Imagine a face covered by blood. Imagine a face where arrows have struck this face. Would you be able to recognize it? He took the face home. He saw his wife. He said to her, you know this face, I can't recognize it. Let's wash the face so we see whose it is. The narration says that he took the face, he began to wash the face slowly. He said to his wife, do you recognize? She said, no, I still don't recognize it. He then looked at the face after having washed it and he said, I ask you in the name of Mary and the son of Mary to tell me who you are. There wasn't a reply from the face, but the next thing that he did would make that holy head reply. He said, I ask you in the name of Fatima and the father of Fatima, tell me who you are. When he said this, he said to him, when Abu Abdullah began to speak now, what did he say? He said to him, oh Christian man, do you think that Ashab al-Kahf are a sign of Allah? I, Hussein ibn Ali, am the greatest sign of Allah. And the Christian began to cry on the face of Abu Abdullah. He began to hug the face of Abu Abdullah. He turned around to his wife. His wife said, why are you crying? He said, do you remember when we couldn't have children? This was the young boy who prayed for me. Yet look at him now, they have beheaded him and brought him to the monastery. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the following dua. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Allahumma inna narghabu ilayka fi dawlatin karima tu'izzu biha al-Islam wa ahlah wa tudillu biha al-nifaq wa ahlah wa taj'aluna fiha min ad-du'ati ila ta'atik wal qadati ila sabilik wa tarzuqna biha karamata ad-dunya wal akhirah. اللهم ما عرفتنا من الحق فحملناه وما قصرنا عنه فبلغناه. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep us on the path of Muhammad and al-Muhammad, to allow us to follow their message and to unite the Muslim Ummah on their message and to remove all oppression in the Islamic world. Raise your hands, brothers and sisters, with the following dua. Allahumma arzuqna shafa'at al-Husayn yawm al-wurud wa thabbit lana qadama sidqin 'indaka ma'a al-Husayn wa ashabah الذين بذلوا مهجهم دون الحسين عليه السلام. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the surah al-Fatiha, but before it the loudest of salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين